He was on hand in Omaha watching his Mississippi State Bulldogs win the College World Series. Perhaps even more motivation for Dak in hopes of leading Dallas to its first Super Bowl title in more than 25 years. Of course, Dak's coming back from that gruesome season-ending ankle injury in October, but now fully healthy heading into training camp. He told KXAS NBC5 it's going to be a big year in Big D.
A lot of improvement, obviously from last year to this year, but deeper than that from those first 5 games. Take those first 5 games and just say we're going to be better than that as a team. We're going to play more complementary football from defense to offense to special teams, and then we're going to have a healthy team. We're excited for this year. It's going to be very, very special for us and for Cowboy fans.
Let's bring in Brian Ballinger and James Palmer. Boy, you understand the high expectations in Dallas every single season. We were having similar conversations last year. We know the offense has the playmakers to be special, but that defense, look out. They brought in Dan Quinn. What's your recipe for a special season for the Cowboys this year in 2021?
Well, I share some of Dak's optimism about the upcoming season. But he said a real important phrase in there, Omar. He said, we got to play better complementary football. Their defense in his first 5 starts last year was awful. I mean, they were giving up 44 points a game, and it forced Dak in games against Cleveland when they're down 41-14 to air it out every play. So if you look at Dak's stats last year, they are awfully inflated. And I'm not downgrading what Dak did. He was just trying to compete and stay in these games. But it was awful to watch, and we all saw it. And so, look, Dan Quinn comes in there, a ton of new talent coming over on the defensive side, very young. It's going to take a while to mold that. But in the time being, offensively, they're the best team in the NFC East. And I don't know if it's enough to win the East, but that should be their goal, to win the East, and not just win the East, but win playoff games, because if you win the East, you're playing at home. And I think Jerry Jones, his mandate, we got to win a playoff game this year with a healthy Dak and a paid Dak.
Well, you're exactly right. I don't think Mike McCarthy was brought in by Jerry Jones just to make it to the playoffs. It was to win playoff games. And you look at the way they're lined up this year. They have the second easiest schedule in all of football. This is arguably the worst division in all of football. And they have hands down the best quarterback in the division by far. And 8 of their first 9 games are against teams that didn't make the playoffs a year ago. So they're set up well, specifically for this defense to hopefully get rolling early with their 3rd defensive coordinator in 18 months. But to me, also helping out that defense could be potentially running the football a little bit more. You heard all those numbers that Baldy had to throw out there because they were throwing the football so much to stay in these games. Well, Ezekiel Elliott has a bit of a chip on his shoulder this offseason, Omar, and a lot of reports out of Dallas is that his feet are a lot quicker than they have been in the last couple of years. Last year, he's coming off of a year where he had a career low in yards per carry, and touchdowns. Could potentially getting him the football a little bit more with a maybe rejuvenated Ezekiel Elliott help out this defense, keep him off the field. We know how many playmakers they have. That could help out this group. And again, staying healthy could be a big part of that optimism. You heard Dak say that as well.
James, to your point, Dallas won playoff games under Jason Garrett, but they never put that deep playoff run together. Certainly the Cowboys looking for that in 2021. Just having a winning season would be a good start. Now to another team that's focusing on a bounce-back year. The Patriots, their first-round pick, Mac Jones, is getting some love from his former college teammate Jalen Hurts. Hurts saying recently that because of Mac's unique college career, where he sat behind Hurts and Tua and then went out and won a national championship of his own, has set himself up for a successful NFL career. Right, guys? It's Cam's job to lose, apparently. Newton saying he feeds off that. Let's bring in Mike Garafolo. Mike, the NFL launched an investigation late last summer into allegations of harassment and workplace misconduct, and today the NFL handed out a record-setting fine. What more can you tell us about that?
That's correct, Omar. Today, the NFL announcing the outcome of the investigation conducted by independent counsel Beth Wilkinson and Commissioner Roger Goodell, finding, according to the league's release, quote, that for many years, the workplace environment at the Washington football team, both generally and particularly for women, was highly unprofessional. Bullying and intimidation frequently took place. Many describe the culture as one of fear. The league saying that Dan Snyder, who oversaw all this, has acknowledged his role in it. Snyder releasing a statement earlier today as well, saying that he expressed remorse for those who experienced any traumatic instances. So the league fining the Washington football team $10 million. That money will go toward organizations committed to character, education, anti-bullying, and the like. Also, 10 recommendations from Wilkinson for how to change the environment. They include protocols for reporting workplace misconduct, as well as a more diverse workforce. Now, there was no written report from Wilkinson here. That's what the NFL said. Many found that odd, especially because in the past, when the NFL has conducted investigations, we've had written reports and they've been disclosed publicly. But the NFL saying only oral reports in this case. Some folks did find that odd, including lawyers Lisa Banks and Deborah Katz, who are representing a bunch of former Washington football team employees. They called it, quote, a slap in the face to hundreds of women and former employees who came forward in good faith and at great personal risk to report a culture of abuse at all levels.
Mike, on that video we kept seeing over your report, the focus was Dan Snyder, of course, the owner of the Washington football team. We already knew that there was an organizational restructure that happened earlier this week. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, that would be Tanya Snyder, Dan's wife, becoming co-CEO. Now, she will take over the day-to-day operations of the team, and Dan Snyder will step aside to focus on other team orders of business, including a new stadium. Now, there was a report at one point, a Washington radio report, that stated that Beth Wilkinson, who conducted the investigation, suggested that Snyder sell the team. Janet Novus, special counsel for the NFL, was asked about that and said no, Wilkinson was only charged with assessing the workplace and making recommendations for how to improve the workplace going forward, not in regard to Snyder's future. So in this case, it's going to be at least for the next several months that Tanya Snyder will handle the day-to-day operations. The NFL, by the way, saying that that was voluntary for Dan Snyder to step away and allow Tanya to handle the day-to-day operations. No firm time frame, just at the very least a couple of months in which that will be the case. Tanya Snyder running the day-to-day operations. But in the end, Dan Snyder gets to keep the team, and I suppose that is the headline for a lot of folks here who believe that maybe that should have been the penalty in this case, but Commissioner Roger Goodell not agreeing with that. Yeah, big note there. Voluntary, that move to have Dan Snyder focus on getting that new stadium built. And of course, Washington has been saying for months now that they've been changing that culture with Ron Rivera, Jason Wright, and the rest of that organizational shakeup in the last couple of years. Mike Garofolo, thank you very much. We'll have more from you in a little while in the show. After he was on hand in Omaha watching his Rams job to lose, apparently. Newton saying he feeds off the haters. And on the other side, Belichick not shy about pulling quarterbacks if he feels there's a better option on the roster. So how do you see the Patriots quarterback situation playing out, Baldy?
Well, I think it's Cam Newton's job to lose. I think whatever Cam Newton has left, we're going to see the best of it. The roster around him has been greatly improved, not just offensively with weapons, but defensively. They're a much improved football team around the quarterback. Now, Cam was benched twice last year. He was benched against the 49ers at home, benched at home in Week 16 against Buffalo. And he just wasn't moving the team. He was making way too many errors. Now, Mac Jones comes in. I've never seen a quarterback complete 78% of their passes at any level. High school, college, pro, I've never seen it. We watched Mac Jones do it this year. I mean, if he's out there and he's completing passes around the yard out there at Gillette Stadium all preseason long, I mean, maybe there'll be a push to get Mac Jones on the field. But I think for right now, the way that Cam Newton can really help out a running game, the way that he did it last year, and the weapons around him, it's his job to lose right now.
And, Baldy, when you look at the way the offseason went, I think there's a few things that we were made clear of. And that's, one, this is Cam Newton's job until somebody beats him out, and that has to happen. Two, what Mac Jones did during this offseason, OTAs and minicamp, can't really be ignored. And I think that doesn't mean he's going to take the job right now, but he did open some eyes in New England with the way his decision-making improved over those 4 weeks, the way he was decisive with the football, and they did not handle him with white gloves. Talking to people in New England, they really wanted to push him and try to get him ready as quickly as possible. It's something Bill Belichick likes to see with him and his staff, and they've been working on that very hard with Mac Jones. So I do think the accuracy issues and the inconsistent play that Cam Newton had a year ago, if you see that again over the length of training camp for periods of time, that would open up the door for Mac Jones a little bit. But one thing he has to do, Omar, is protect the football. Threw a couple of picks during the offseason. Again, that's a learning portion of time. That's a time where everybody's picking up the playbook. But at the same time, if he protects the football and is accurate with the football, we know that's a recipe that Bill Belichick does like if Cam Newton sputters in any sense.
Yeah, obviously the Patriots need to improve quarterback play. On paper, they've dramatically improved that roster, hoping to put it all together and get back to the playoffs. Now to a quarterback I know you both are familiar with in Carson Wentz, who had a roller coaster of a first act in Philly, and now he's been reunited with his former OC in Frank Reich in Indy. Let's hoping that this next chapter has a better ending.
I really feel like I have a new passion for the game now that I've seen. I mean, I've been the high, I've been injured, I've been now benched, I've been traded. I've kind of seen a lot in 5 years. And so whatever the game throws at me, I'm ready. And it's kind of given me a new level of excitement for football. Obviously, I'm excited to be with my former offensive coordinator, Coach Frank Reich. Loved that man to death, and just met a lot of new faces in Indy and a lot of people that I'm really fired up to play with.
All right, guys, Baldy, you know the Philly media can be blunt at times. James, your dad's been a part of that Philly media for years. But Carson's play towards the end gave them good reason to be. Will a fresh start in Indy get Wentz back to playing at that MVP caliber level?
I don't think this is just as easy as putting a different uniform on with a coach that he likes. I mean, there was a lot of dysfunction on Carson's part. I mean, whether it was his inability to communicate and really galvanize the team around him, that's the quarterback's job. Build the relationships, keep them going. You just can't shut down the way Carson did in Philadelphia last year and just not have relationships. So, look, fresh start's a good thing. This is a playoff football team that the Colts have. They were the 9th best offensive football with Phillip Rivers at quarterback at his age and no ability to run. They were the 9th best offensive football. Frank Reich has a commitment to the run game. It's undeniable, and that's going to help Carson. I think he's got a lot of young talent around him that should excite him. They'll be in a 3 tight end offense. They won a Super Bowl with a 3 tight end offense. Carson will like that. They got studs on defense. They're a very good football team. His job is to not just win this job, but elevate the team around him and get them back to the postseason and start winning in the postseason, because that team is built for the postseason right now.
And, Baldy, you're so right about what he has to do for the environment that's around him. Frank Reich has talked, obviously, at length this offseason about his relationship with Carson Wentz. They stayed in touch in the years when they were not even within the same organization, texting back and forth. That's a relationship we see as the one that Carson Wentz wanted. And if you talk to people that have worked with Wentz in the past, they'll say this is the perfect spot for him if he's going to change it. But to your point, Reich also says repeatedly it's what he does with his teammates, which is more important than my relationship with him right now. That's something that needs to adapt and grow as he spends this offseason with those players. And they have spoken glowingly about him. Obviously, that's what players are supposed to do about their quarterback, but it's almost been above and beyond in some instances, which is a little bit interesting. But this is a fresh start for him, and coaches that have worked with him in the past have been frustrated at times. This could be the one guy that always finds a way to get to Carson Wentz's mindset. Potentially, this could be the great landing spot for him. And Baldy's exactly right. That running game is dynamic with multiple pieces that play the position differently that can help him out. That left tackle spot's one early on in the season, though, Omar, we do have to keep an eye on before Eric Fisher gets healthy.
Yeah, you can argue that maybe the Eagles kept together that Super Bowl 52 winning roster a little too long. The cupboard was bare toward the end of Wentz's tenure there.
The Denver Broncos are in the middle of a quarterback camp battle between Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. Whoever wins the job will be tasked with navigating the team's toughest 4-game stretch of the season in weeks 4 through 7.
Let's go! Go!
Let's go. Let's do it.
The stretch starts with consecutive games against AFC North opponents. First, taking on former MVP Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, before visiting two-time Super Bowl champion Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers. Denver then faces their division rival Las Vegas Raiders in the lone game of the stretch where I have them favored, before another AFC North matchup with Baker Mayfield, Myles Garrett, and the Cleveland Browns.
Touchdown, Denver! Touchdown, Denver!
The two-time defending AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs are favorites in my model in each game during their toughest four-game stretch of the 2021 season.
The ball comes your way, far around and make something happen.
Starting with a rematch of the 2020 AFC Championship game against Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and the Buffalo Bills.
He left the I-60. You gotta took the ball from him.
Kansas City then goes on the road for two games against defending division champs. First, the Washington football team, and then the Tennessee Titans. The Chiefs then return home to face the New York Giants before another marquee matchup with reigning MVP Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers.
Let's go!
New head coach Brandon Staley and the Chargers will be challenged quickly this season, as the team's toughest four-game stretch is in weeks 1 through 4.
Touchdown, Chargers!
Joining the Detroit Lions as the only teams to start with the most difficult 4 games. Second-year quarterback Justin Herbert will not be able to ease into the season, as he faces potentially the best defensive line in the league in Week 1 when he goes up against Chase Young and the Washington football team. Los Angeles then hosts the Dallas Cowboys before traveling to Kansas City to take on the defending AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs. The stretch concludes with the lone game where I have the Chargers favored, taking on the Raiders at home.
Caught Keenan Allen into the end zone. Touchdown, Chargers!
The Las Vegas Raiders' toughest four-game stretch this season doesn't come until weeks 12 through 15, when it starts against a former Raider in Amari Cooper and the Dallas Cowboys.
Come on, bro. What else would you rather do?
Las Vegas then hosts Chase Young and the Washington football team before two tough road games. The Raiders face the Kansas City Chiefs and Cleveland Browns to round out their difficult stretch in games where they have a win probability below 40% in my model.
Fires to Renfro. Touchdown! And it's game over, baby.
Yes.
Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are big favorites again in the AFC West. But will the Chargers or someone else challenge them in 2021?
Brian Baldinger and James Palmer back with me now. We saw some wildly entertaining games in this division last year, but more often than not, the Chiefs came out on top. Very much kings of the hill in the AFC West. But Chargers DB Chris Harris making some noise about the Chargers, saying the Bolts could be a problem with Derwin James back on the field. Baldy, with a 17-game schedule and the expanded playoffs now, what are the chances we see two teams come out of the West for the playoffs?
It's been a while, Omar, but I believe it can happen this year, and I believe that second team, to me, can be the Chargers. I mean, obviously, Justin Herbert is out. But what Brandon Staley did last year with the Rams, it cannot go unnoticed. He took the Rams defense that went from number 17 in 2019 to number 1. Now, if they make some kind of a jump like that with the Chargers, with a healthy Derwin James, a second-year Kenneth Murray, drafting Asante Samuel, a healthy Joey Bosa, on and on and on. I mean, if they make a jump into the top 7 defenses this year, which is entirely possible the way Brandon Staley empowers his players to really take a hold of the defense, I think the Chargers can make that run. And so I think offensively, they're going to be good. But defensively is where I'm really interested to see what kind of a jump this team can make. I believe Derwin James can be that Jalen Ramsey that we saw a year ago with the Rams. That type of an impactful player.
And Baldy, my focus is on the other side of the ball when you have a guy who goes out and just wows the NFL in his rookie season in Justin Herbert, and now he gets a new offensive coordinator in Joe Lombardi coming over from the Saints. And how does that relationship mesh between the two of them? They're tailoring this offense to fit all of Justin Herbert's strengths. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL against pressure on third down. How do they manipulate this from a completely different skill set than what they had with Drew Brees? Now, they've set him up to succeed by having Chase Daniel Daniel as his backup quarterback who knows the system. Jared Cook comes over who spent 2 years in the system. And Cook recently said he is picking this up really, really quickly. He has seen young quarterbacks not pick up this offense and struggle with it and never really get it. That's not happening with Justin Herbert. He is picking things up quickly, Omar. He is also, with the mistakes he makes, which happens, right, with young quarterbacks in a new system, the same mistake is not happening twice. And that's a big thing they're noticing with the Chargers as he picks these new aspects up, that they're going to have a lot of different personnel, a lot of different ways they use the talent around him. And how does Joe Lombardi use Austin Eckler in that kind of Alvin Kamara role? It's going to be an interesting dynamic to watch through camp.
It'll be a fascinating case study with Justin Herbert. Rarely do we ever see a rookie quarterback dominate the way Justin Herbert did. Then they make a switch there at offensive coordinator or head coach. It'll be fascinating to see how that Chargers offense comes together. Tomorrow, remember, we're breaking down the NFC West, which many people consider the toughest division in football. Can't wait for that one. Gentlemen, thank you.
He is a first-round pick out of USC, Anthony Munoz.
There's 100 unbelievable players that are going to be on this board.
Yes.
There's not one of them that's going to end up on that board I would trade for him. I'm talking about one of the great athletes that has ever put on a helmet in the National Football League, sitting right there.
I was going to be a Major League Baseball player. I was going to be a third baseman or a pitcher. Brooks Robinson or Juan Marichal. That's what I was going to do.
Looking at this picture of you over here and all this tape you have on, and I'm looking at you talk, and I'm looking at that finger.
Yeah, no,
it didn't work. You need more tape.
Bad tape, man.
Oh, God, look at that thing.
That finger rivals anyone in the NFL. We're now joined by legendary Bengals offensive lineman, Hall of Famer Anthony Munoz. Anthony, so good to have you with us. We're going to talk some Bengals football here to start. The AFC North has been the darlings of the offseason, with 3 teams obviously playing in the playoffs last year. But the team that wasn't was the Bengals. Where do you think they're headed in 2021?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm excited about our direction. You know, we're going to have a healthy Joe Burrow, which I'm thrilled about. Watching him last year before he got hurt, I was really excited about his progress. I know he's going to be healthy, the type of work ethic he has. So I'm excited. Of course, you know, they drafted Jamar Chase, #1 pick, which, you know, again, very talented young man. I was a little bit in the Panay camp, hoping they would take a big tackle, but they didn't. So we just move on. But the one thing I'm excited about, even with Chase as a #1 pick, is that Frank Pollock, the offensive line coach who was there 3 years ago, is back as a line coach. And that was Joe Mixon's best year rushing the last 3 years, is when Frank Pollock. I love the way he teaches. I love his intensity. So I really believe he's going to take some of these young linemen that are there and he's going to develop them. The question about, will Joe Burrow have protection? I think Frank Pollock will take care of that with the development of the line. And then defensively, I think they just continue to help themselves with some good speed. So I'm excited about the direction that this football team's going in, and I'm looking forward to watching them in 2021.
Certainly a priority to protect Joe Burrow here in 2021. They got him more weapons, reuniting him with Jamar Chase there, his old teammate at LSU. I want to talk about your durability in your 13-year NFL career. You only missed 1 game the first 11 seasons, and that was coming off some major knee injuries that you had coming out of USC. One of the other former Bengal legends at left tackle, Andrew Whitworth, still playing, and he's going to turn 40 years old in December. Can you put into words what sort of challenge it is to play that position? He's not a kicker or a quarterback, Anthony, to play that position into that late age.
No, it's a great challenge, and I respect Whit not only as a player but as a person. I got to know Whit when he was here really, really well, and of course I'm still enjoying watching him play because he's done an amazing job, not only all his years with the Bengals but now with the Rams. And you know, it takes, you know, a lot of work. I mean, you know, and it takes you know, intensity. Every time you're playing out there, you got to, you know, play at the highest level, because I really believe the harder you play, the more speed you play with, that's going to get you to lower risk of getting injured, and that's what Andrew's done. You mentioned, you know, my career with, you know, the first couple, well, really you look at the 12 years, because you have the year after that, missed a couple games in my 12 years up to my 13th year. You know, and I just think it's preparation. You have to be ready. You have to be in excellent shape, and that allows you to play at a high level of intensity and, you know, moving all the time. So, yeah, so, you know, again, when I meet someone, I get to know them, I see they're great people, as I have with Andrew Whitworth. It's fun. Of everybody. And, you know, for me, having a chance to go back to Southern California, I was in East LA, then I went out to Ontario, California, where I was born and raised, and then to Riverside, which is right down the street. And to really encourage people, you know, the one thing that I wanted to do, and I expressed it, I'm not an expert, I'm not a doctor, but because you educate yourself, you want to know what is right and what is not right. And the analogy I use, a lot of people didn't realize that when I was in college, my 4 years at USC, I went through 3 knee operations. And because I listened to doctors, I listened to the medical staff, the training staff, and I listened to the physical therapist. That got me back on the field. So I listened to the doctors during the pandemic. I wanted to know exactly what I had to do to avoid getting sick, to avoid the coronavirus. And to me, I educated myself, and it was about taking the vaccine. So I took it, and that's what I did. As someone that has a wife, 43 years, couple kids, and some grandkids. I wanted to be that example, hopefully that leader that says, okay, here's what we need to do. We need to listen to the medical staff. And that's what I did. Educate yourself, because I know there's a lot of misinformation out there. And for me, being a man of color, Hispanic, I wanted to really focus on the general community, but also understanding that the African-American and the Hispanic communities are really hesitant to take the vaccine. Again, I'm not demanding and saying you have to do this, but what I'm saying is educate yourself and see what's best and what's healthy and what's safe for you. And that's what I've had a chance to do with HealthNet and the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I've made several trips around the country, but the one that was really special is going back to Southern California, where everything started for me. Not only going to the Hollenbeck Youth Center, which is right there in East LA, several miles from the USC campus where I went to school and played college football, but then going to my hometown and seeing some familiar faces and sharing the message and encouraging people to do that.
Well, Anthony Munoz, you're a legend in our household. You're a legend here at USC and, of course, in Ohio with Bengals Nation. Appreciate you doing that, speaking out for people to get their vaccinations. And because of that, I hope to see you in person here in the 2021 season. Anthony Munoz, thank you again very much for joining us here on NFL Total Access.
Well, thank you. I'm looking to seeing a lot of people in person this year, getting back to games, getting back to, doing in-person interviews. And I'd love to do that someday here in the near future with you. Thanks for having me.
And a special offer from the league to encourage everyone to get vaccinated. The official NFL shop offering a 25% discount on all orders. And he was on hand in Omaha watching his Mississippi State Bulldogs win the College World Series. Perhaps even more motivation for Dak in hopes of leading Dallas to its first Super Bowl title in more than 25 years. Of course, Dak's coming back from that gruesome season-ending ankle injury in October, but now fully healthy heading into training camp. He told KXAS NBC5 it's going to be a big year in Big D.
A lot of improvement, obviously from last year to this year, but deeper than that from those first 5 games. Take those first 5 games and just say we're going to be better than that as a team. We're going to play more complementary football from defense to offense to special teams, and then we're going to have a healthy team. We're excited for this year. It's going to be very, very special for us and for Cowboy fans.
Let's bring in Brian Ballinger and James Palmer. Boy, you understand the high expectations in Dallas every single season. We were having similar conversations last year. We know the offense has the playmakers to be special, but that defense, look out. They brought in Dan Quinn. What's your recipe for a special season for the Cowboys this year in 2021?
Well, I share some of Dak's optimism about the upcoming season. But he said a real important phrase in there, Omar. He said, we got to play better complementary football. Their defense in his first 5 starts last year was awful. I mean, they were giving up 44 points a game, and it forced Dak in games against Cleveland when they're down 41-14 to air it out every play. So if you look at Dak's stats last year, they are awfully inflated. And I'm not downgrading what Dak did. He was just trying to compete and stay in these games. But it was awful to watch. And we all saw it And so, look, Dan Quinn comes in there, a ton of new talent coming over on the defensive side, very young. It's going to take a while to mold that. But in the time being, offensively, they're the best team in the NFC East. And I don't know if it's enough to win the East, but that should be their goal, to win the East, and not just win the East, but win playoff games, because if you win the East, you're playing at home. And I think Jerry Jones, his mandate, we got to win a playoff game this year with a healthy Dak and a paid Dak.
Well, you're exactly right. I don't think Mike McCarthy was brought in by Jerry Jones just to make it to the playoffs. It was to win playoff games. And you look at the way they're lined up this year, they have the second easiest schedule in all of football. This is arguably the worst division in all of football, and they have hands down the best quarterback in the division by far, and 8 of their first 9 games are against teams that didn't make the playoffs a year ago. So they're set up well, specifically for this defense to hopefully get rolling early with their 3rd defensive coordinator in 18 months. But to me, also helping out that defense could be potentially running the football a little bit more. You heard all those numbers that Baldy had to throw out there because they were throwing the football so much to stay in these games. Well, Ezekiel Elliott has a bit of a chip on his shoulder this offseason, Omar, and a lot of reports out of Dallas is that his feet are a lot quicker than they have been in the last couple of years. Last year, he's coming off of a year where he had a career low in yards per carry, and touchdowns. Could potentially getting him the football a little bit more with a maybe rejuvenated Ezekiel Elliott help out this defense, keep him off the field. We know how many playmakers they have. That could help out this group. And again, staying healthy could be a big part of that optimism. You heard Dak say that as well.
James, to your point, Dallas won playoff games under Jason Garrett, but they never put that deep playoff run together. Certainly the Cowboys looking for that in 2021. Just having a winning season would be a good start. Now to another team that's focusing on a bounce-back year. The Patriots, their first-round pick, Mac Jones, is getting some love from his former college teammate, Jalen Hurts. Hurts saying recently that because of Mac's unique college career, where he sat behind Hurts and Tua and then went out and won a national championship of his own, has set himself up for a successful NFL career. Right, guys? It's Cam's job to lose, apparently. Newton saying he feeds off the